she's a great athlete, and she picks stuff up really quickly, and she trains really hard, and we've identifying where her weaknesses are, and we're going to slowly erase those weaknesses, I think. So
I felt like I was getting more and more women kind of thinking, wow, like CrossFit's actually really similar to strongman, and they can kind of see the transition between the two.
Yeah.
So now they're starting to like ask questions about strongman and what that's about.
Yeah.
And I think that's
really
actually
exciting.
very cool.
So we have, out of the 4 divisions, 2 of the champions, 2 of the Australian champions are from WA,
Yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
But we don't have a qualifier in WA for the next year's
I know, right?
ASMS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the prerequisite was for you to wear a dress.
To wear a dress.
To be a part of the sisterhood, you
Okay.
know?
Okay. All right.
We'll make
so
it a mini
basically,
dress
I just got to wear a dress, and then I'm a tacky sister.
Yeah.
All right.
Although
It's gonna be a slutty dress, just so you know.
Oh.
with
definitely watch
with
I'm gonna get all the way tacky. Okay. Welcome back to the Strength Institute. This is the YouTube. Welcome back to. It's been a while since I've done one of these.
Clearly.
Welcome back to the Strength Institute channel, everybody. Today we have Jane and Anthony here from W.A Strongman, and we're going to be talking about all things strongman and W.A and beyond. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
Perfect. Now, yeah, it's great. We've had Anthony on one time before, and Jane was in the room.
Yeah.
She was in the room. She was sort of sitting up by the
Camera
desk
shy.
by herself. She was camera shy, and now she has her very own podcast.
I know.
Which is actually the top of my list. We talked about a few different topics we wanted to talk about, and the top of my list was Tacky Sisters. Right? We might as well get stuck into the fun stuff first, and then we'll get into all the details about the W.A Strongman.
Sounds good.
So, Jane, how did you go from being a little bit camera shy to having your very own Tacky Sisters podcast?
Jane.
And tell the people, what is the Tacky Sisters podcast?
So, okay, well, I'll start with how it all began. So basically, myself, Zoe, Fee, and Megan, we all actually had like a Facebook group chat. And we would talk about almost everything under the sun through it. And I was kind of still trying to figure out how I was going to incorporate strongman into like my coaching business and kind of brainstorming from there. All the while I was having a chat with these girls, and I was literally just walking through Kings Park, and I just had this epiphany.
Ooh, okay.
And I was like, and the girls were talking about God knows what on the chat.
Memes.
while
I was about to
talking.
ask, is you said they're all talking about everything. I feel like Megan's an oversharer sometimes.
She talks about you a
Surprisingly-
lot.
Talks about me a lot.
Surprisingly, on the chat, she is the quietest.
Really?
But the podcast has really let her personality shine, let's just say.
Yeah,
but,
I think so.
But yeah, so basically, like those girls were talking while I was still brainstorming and kind of thinking what I could do. And then I thought, man, I feel like people would want to listen to us just chatting about whatever when it comes to strongman and like, you know, things that go on in life, how we live as females. And I realized that we're all kind of different in our own way because, you know, we've got Fee who not only is, you know, she looks very different, but like with all her
What's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, what is that supposed to
her
mean?
tattoos and, you know, like as in
She looks badass. That's what she's
She
saying.
does.
Okay,
Well,
all right.
we all look
We're not
badass.
body shaming her for having some tattoos now, surely.
Yeah, that's
oh
goals.
my God. Well, yeah.
She's gonna love this.
So yeah, but then I was kind of looking at her and what her goals were and how she started. She's a hairdresser by day. Then we have Megan, who's like insanely strong. She looks really like, you know, very like built, and yet she's a primary school teacher. Then you got Zoe, who at the time was like, you know, working for the government, and you know, she was a powerlifter when she first started before getting into strongman. And then there was myself, who was a strength coach, who was just finding strongman only a couple of years ago and like really starting to grow that side of my business. So all of us kind of combined, we all came from different angles, and I thought, man, it would be so cool to be able to bring that to the public and just show that no matter what, like, you know, where you come from, strongman is built for everyone. And especially amongst women, I think that that's something that we want to be able to be insightful for that.
Yeah.
So I just asked them randomly, I was like, how would you guys feel about doing a podcast? And they were just like, all thumbs up straight away, no hesitation. So yeah, that's basically how it started. And yeah, hopefully we'll keep kind of growing and continue talking about like how females are in lifting sports in general and, just general banter. And most of the feedback that I got for the podcast was literally just, it feels like I'm in the room with you.
Yes.
And you guys are all having a conversation and I'm sitting in the room with you having that conversation. And that's exactly the type of kind of view that I want to give for everyone.
That's what you want, is you want them to feel a part of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, which is great. And I've listened. Now you've got 5 episodes up already. I've listened to 4 out of the 5. You must have put 4 and 5 up really similar time.
I did put them up at the same time.
At the same time? So I listened to the first 3 and then the 5th one by accident. So I need to go back and listen to the 4th one. Now, I've been asking. I said, now Megan, if you guys need like a fill-in, I know it's the Tacky sisters. If you need a fill-in, right?
Navinia.
I'm down.
That's what we'll call you.
I'm down. And apparently there's some prerequisites that I must do. But can you please explain what these prerequisites are? Because I missed it on the 5th one. Apparently it's in the 4th episode. I've got to go back and listen to that one. So look, in order for this, let's just say, well-experienced podcaster. I mean, between the Strength Institute podcast and my Big Flex podcast, we've got like 50, 60 episodes up, lots of tutorials, shorts, right? So what do I have to do? What do I have to do to get onto the podcast of the Tacky sisters?
Look, I'll put this on the record. Zoe and I are perfectly fine with you coming on board.
Yeah.
You're the two that you have to impress and get approval from is Megan and Fee.
Look, Megan's already said that I'm good to come on.
Really?
She said there's going to have to be some prerequisites. And I'm not trying to step on toes here and edge anyone out. All right? Look, if that's the way it happens, like that's the way it happens. But it's more so if someone was feeling sick and you wanted to get like an alternate in, I'd be a good alternate, guys.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Well,
I'm down.
look, the prerequisite was for you to wear a dress.
To wear a dress.
To be a part of the sisterhood, you
Okay.
know? So,
All right.
Is this when we get the videos of you guys doing the Tacky Sisters podcast?
Yes,
too?
because right now it's audio only, correct?
it is.
Yeah.
But the goal is that we want to be podcast as an audio as a priority, but then we'll have another kind of video highlights and all that sort of stuff on our Instagram and YouTube and whatnot.
Nice.
So, look, you could be the debut for that video one.
Right.
I'd watch that.
And I feel like it would go viral.
I think you get a lot of views, to be honest.
100%.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
We'll make
so
it a mini
basically, I
dress
just got to wear a dress, and then I'm a Tacky sister.
Yeah.
All right.
Although
It's going to be a slutty dress, just so you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
with
definitely watch
with
it.
I'm going to get all the way
sequins.
tacky. Okay. and for the people listening, tacky not as in like. She's so tacky. It's like as in tacky, as in
like the
strongman
sticky
tacky.
stuff
It's a
they use for
sticky
the
stuff.
stones.
So it's like the double entendre, right? Yeah.
That's so good, right?
It's a pun on words. It's
Yeah.
great. So all your strength athletes that know what tacky is would appreciate the name right there. But yeah, it's not a jab at anything.
No, it's not.
Well, that's good. I think I'll definitely I'll entertain the thought of getting into a dress and jumping onto the Tacky sisters there.
Look,
Yeah.
it might be sooner than you think because,
Okay.
look, poor Zoe, but Zoe, she's had a career change. She's quite busy at the moment with that career change, still adjusting. So we're actually one sister down.
Right.
So, there
Okay.
could be some little
go dress
maneuvering
shopping
happening.
together.
That's it. Look, all of a sudden, it's we don't want them on the podcast. Yes,
Yeah, I
we're
was like
dressed.
that.
It's like, actually, we're one short, Nevin. Yeah. Interesting. See how that works
Yeah,
out.
it's just a coincidence.
Cool. Uh-huh. All right. Well, that's good. I think that's, so. People can find that anywhere where they download audio podcasts.
Yeah. If you we're predominantly on Spotify. But even if you just follow us on the Tacky Sisters on Instagram, we normally release the episodes up there, the links there and everything. So if you just follow there, then
Perfect.
you can track us.
Nice, guys. So get stuck in, give them a follow and a listen. It is a good quality podcast, and especially if you're a lady getting into strength sports, into training, you're in good company because they're all women that train and lift heavy weights. So very fun little podcast there.
Exciting.
Cool. All right. Well, let's jump into a bit more about Strongman and W.A Strongman.
Yeah, let's do it.
You sent a couple little talking points that we wanted to talk
Yeah,
about as
yeah.
well. I think the first one was sort of like strong women in sports. Yep. So do you want to sort of take the charge there on what you guys wanted to talk about?
I feel like Jane's probably got more experience on this one than I do, so I'll leave this one to you.
I've done a couple little dot points up there. I mean, it's the same ones that you had sent me through on the Facebook.
It's all
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, strongman, it's literally strong man, right? So a lot of the time, women in this sport in the past has been quite scarce, or it's been very up and down. You'll have a year where there'll be a huge influx of women and then the following year there's barely any. So this is one of those years where it's really, there's been like a high influx. And, we actually talked about this on our podcast, Nevin, but it was a bit like, Strength Institute is leading the team in terms of
I don't know if we're leading the team. We've got a few strong ladies in there. Like we're setting, we're trying to put forward a good field.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. Like, this is the year where a lot of women are starting to step up in the sport of strongman. And I think like that's definitely something to point out. And, I've gotten way more inquiries from particularly women interested in getting into the sport or even just trying it out, not necessarily competing in it. But I feel like women are now kind of going outside that conventional realm of just a barbell and dumbbells and things like that. And they're actually wanting to get their hands dirty with strongman training. And I think that is...
With Tacky, right?
Oof.
Particularly with Tacky.
Tacky's just the worst. It's just the
man.
worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People think that it's fun until you're actually in it. And then you're just like, oh, why did I do it?
Literally.
Yeah. But I think it's definitely something to keep encouraging is women coming into the sport of strongman, because it's still not quite there at the same level as men in strongman. I'm not sure if it ever will be, but it's definitely becoming more and more recognized in the world. And I think WA is leading a strong pack.
Yeah, I think it's only a matter of time before you're looking at equal numbers between the men and the women.
So. Yeah.
Because if you look at let's say CrossFit's pretty mainstream now, right?
Yeah.
And so, again, you look at the women that are competing, it's not just
They're stronger than some of the men, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not just a bunch of ladies that have some free time on the weekend that go and push some weights. No, these are like serious athletes.
Yeah.
And so it's taken, a handful of years to really sort of grow and develop that stable base in that sport. So and if you look at powerlifting as well, like if you go to a GPC states sort of level competition, there's a lot of lady lifters. It's not like there's one in each weight class. Like the weight classes are full. And you're looking at the more popular weight classes like that 67 through 82 range that covers 3 weight classes. There's a hell of a lot of competition.
So much.
So if you and
GPC
powerlifting
lifters should be joining strongman for
yeah,
sure.
well, 100%. And
Shout out.
Powerlifting's probably not like mainstream either, right? CrossFit's more popular. But if you look at that trend, I feel like it's got to be only just a matter of time before strongman picks up and the women in there and you have a lot more interest, a lot more competitors.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah, 100%. And like that was the thing I always kind of, especially, it was kind of weird after the CrossFit Games earlier this year. I felt like I was getting more and more women kind of thinking, wow, like CrossFit's actually really similar to strongman, and they can kind of see the transition between the two.
Yeah.
So now they're starting to like ask questions about strongman and what that's about.
Yeah.
And I think that's
really
actually
exciting.
very cool.
I think it's very good. And then you have women coming in with an athletic base already as well.
Exactly.
Right? So they know how to lift, they know how to work hard, and then now you're teaching them the strongman events and they can be quite competitive right off the bat. Except all this damn split jerking going on. All right? Too much split jerking going on in the ladies' weight classes. Now, it's funny to just say, just give it a strong push press, all right? But I think that actually is because a lot of the ladies that have tried strongman do have a bit of a background in sort of CrossFit where they do a lot of split jerking, with the barbells.
It's a good skill to have though within strongman. Like if you can implement that into like your axles, which would probably be the easiest lift for strongman to transition into, like it's great.
Yep.
But damn, when you see some people doing split jerks with a log, it scares you sometimes.
What's wrong with
like,
split jerking?
Split jerking a log is just
with
dangerous.
With a log,
so look,
yes.
I'll definitely pay that split jerking with an axle is pretty close, but it gets to the point as well where you can't. When the weight gets to a certain weight, you can't clean it. You have to continental clean it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's true.
So you're already changing a lot and you're using a lot of energy to get it up. Now, you will have a couple freaks. Like you got your Naramu sort of guys that can do a huge axle split jerk, right? Clean split jerk. And he's just isn't monster. He's a freak of nature, right?
100%.
But when you're looking at sort of the biggest overhead presses in the world in strongman, most of them are just push pressing, right?
Yeah,
it's going to be a much more stable base. Now, whether that's because they don't have a background at all in Olympic lifting or in those sort of movements, maybe as well.
So, it's an interesting question to kind of think of, right? Because like you try and figure out like where the development of the sport's going to, and I definitely think like some of the heavier or like the open weight categories, both male and female, like push press is fine, but I'm gonna kind of like side with everyone that loves to do the split jerks. Like a lot of the lighter weight athletes, like they want to push some heavy weights, and like majority of the big guys that we see that go to Worlds and stuff and OSG, a lot of them do split jerks. Like Naramu is a big example. It's like if you've got a smaller frame, it's harder for you to produce that momentum to drive like some of the massive amounts of weight that they do. I think like Arnold's UK was on, and there was this girl that did, she was maybe under 64s, I think. I've forgotten her name, but she broke the log world record. It was like over 100 plus kilos. And she absolutely smashed it. Didn't split jerk though, mind you, which I think was also pretty good. But when you look at some of the, no, she didn't. So she just push pressed it, and it looked like it looked more like a strict press than a push press.
So what you're saying is that the
it's
biggest
50-50
lifters in the world. No, I was kidding. Yeah. No, I agree, and I think that they're definitely a split jerk on an axle, definitely good. I just think that with a log, it's just so big and so unstable. It's really big, it's awkward, and just like safety as well. But I just don't see how you can get more. Like strength comes from stability, right? Like, and we say to my people when we train, smooth is strong. Be smooth, be stable. If you're not stable, you can't put as much force into whatever you're trying to lift.
That's
Exactly.
I just feel like a push press, you get a lot more stability. But definitely for an axle, it has its part sometimes. And you're right, for lighter athletes probably as well, they don't have that sort of body weight mass to like really sit back and lean with this huge weight on their chest. Could be a lot more beneficial too. There you go, time and place, guys. Time and place. Perfect.
We learned something today.
Yeah.
That's it. We all agreed on it. That's perfect. I guess something that I wanted to talk to you guys about as well, and that you guys also wanted to talk about, was sort of the pathways and systems that we're putting in place in Strongman and in WA for athletes to progress to like higher levels. So what are we sort of talking with? And I think we talked about, having a lot more participation, which is just down the track a little bit, but you've run a lot of comps this year. What sort of pathways do we have, and what are we looking at implementing moving forward?
Do you want to start
I'll
this
let
one?
you spearhead this one, because you've been the creator of most of the competition.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so first and foremost, like we're coming to the end of the 2022 season. So we're what's it, 7 weeks out from the state championships. So normally this time of year is when we kind of sit down and we go like, okay, what have we done so far this year that's been good? What have we not done that's good? What can we improve on? Like with anything, if you want to do it well, you got to have those moments of giving each other feedback. And if you don't have external feedback, you're not gonna figure out what you need to progress from. And for us, one of the biggest things that we looked at is the fact that like we've created these steady competitions this year. Like the start of the year, we had the Battle of the House of Pain. We had the Clash on the West Coast. We had the Winter Tournament. We had the King and Queen of the Pit. And then we had the state championships, and those are like some big name competitions. We also had a really great like entry level competition, the Strength Challenge. That was just a 3-lift comp that anyone could do, where we debuted the juniors and masters divisions. And those were like great things. And we kind of created an atmosphere behind it all. We had a theme for every competition, so it made it really easy for people to want to actually jump in and go and do. But the idea of kind of going like, what can we do that's bigger, that's better? Like how can we spearhead where the sport should be going? And so yeah, we're kind of in the process of planning for what's going on next year, and we're gonna try and do as best as we can and to go bigger and better. But so far, like this year, it's been really, really great to see like just the community itself actually support itself and grow with everyone. Like it's actually fun to see how like with every competition you see the people that are new in the sport that go and they'll compete in a competition, then they'll volunteer in the next competition to help everyone else. And it's almost like I'm sure if you're familiar with the metaphor of the snake that eats itself. Like we're a community that supports itself. Like we can't really grow if we don't feed into the community that we're a part of. And that's kind of the main thing that we try and focus on, is like how can we give back as much as possible and letting that kind of pay its dues.
Sure. And I mean, you touched on it then, but you've had a lot more participation in these comps. So how many comps have you run this year?
Oh, let's count.
Let's count them up.
House of Pain.
Yeah. We had the Clash. We had the Winter Tournament. Well, Clash was technically two major divisions. Yeah. So I think, but it was one competition. Then we had the Strength Challenge, King or Queen of the Pit. So there's 5 competitions.
Yep. And then there's still states to
still
finish
states
off.
as
So
well
it's
to
going to be
finish
6 for the competitive year.
Yeah.
So we had Battle at the House of Pain being a novice. Clash, as Anthony mentioned, there were 2 divisions. So we kind of made it so you had a higher division, which was the Clash, and then you had
the qualifying division and the Clash division.
Yeah, the qualifying division was was the standard that you would normally get to qualify for states. But for those that kind of wanted to step it up to the plate, that was where we had that Clash division, and it was the first time that we were actually able to get a sponsor to help us get some cash prize for that one. So that was actually a big deal
fun.
for us.
It was a great venue too, being in Scarborough, all on the beach.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of the keg toss
That
event.
was Clash of the West Coast.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, and then the winter tournament was a combination of both a qualifier and a novice. Which was one of our bigger competitions.
Yeah,
of the
biggest
year.
one so far this year.
Yeah, and then finally the strength challenge was kind of like it was a smaller production, but we had a really big what is it? Not contribution.
We had a big community thing.
Well, involvement really.
I actually want to talk about that comp for a little bit because we weren't aware of it, but The Muscle Pit was where we hosted the King and Queen of the Pit, and they host this amazing bench only powerlifting comp every year there, called the King of the Bench, or the King and Queen of the Bench, I think it is. Now, we worked with Henry and the Strongman community there to tee up a competition with them, and we actually for the first time actually empowered that crew to actually facilitate the competition. So we kind of took a step back a little bit. Because both of us had COVID 2 weeks before the winter tournament competition, and that kind of gave us a bit of a scare of if we had it a week later, we would have had to literally cancel the competition and postpone it a week. And so for that kind of growth, we need to facilitate and teach people what the standards are of what our competitions are and how we can keep that growing. Because ultimately, we're only 2 people. We can only do so much for every comp that we do. But besides that, I found out that the Muscle Pit, it was the first ever strongman competition hosted there. And they're the oldest and the most established strongman community in the state.
Yeah, they've been around for a long time.
Yeah. And they've had all the equipment there for ages. So it was so great to kind of be a part of history as well, to kind of go back to the roots of strongman and really do something great for the community. And it was so good to see Jack, Zoe, and Matt really actually put in the effort to do these comps. And I'll be honest, it was kind of also nice to see other people see how much work we put in and kind of freak out a little bit, but also learn to problem solve those things. And then it was an opportunity for us to teach and to kind of go how can we do better next time? But also it's just everyone that competed there was pretty much brand new and hadn't done a competition before either, which is always what you want to see too. So it was great.
With the novice comps, you don't have to weigh in. We treat the weight class kind of weight divisions and everything as more different levels of how heavy you can go, and then you can just basically choose.
Yeah.
And then obviously you've got those qualifiers where obviously you do have to weigh in, because that those that will podium in the top 3. Yeah, top 3, they will then get an invite to our state championships at the end of the year, which will then, if you podium there, then you'll get all those invites for Australia's Strongest, particularly with the open weight classes. Then they'll get the ASMW invite as well for next year. So.
Right. And so that's, I guess, one of the main bits that I want to talk about as well, is that pathway to national level events and beyond. So basically, if you podium at state finals here in any weight class, that gets you, is it any weight class or is it just the opens that gets to ASM?
So every weight class. So
just opens for ASM.
For ASM and Australia's Strongest Women.
Okay, so the open, so the heavyweight males, so which is over 105 kilos, and the over 82 kilo women get to compete. If they podium, they get to go across to Australia's Strongest Man and Australia's Strongest Woman competition.
Isn't it just first place?
First place for first place. Yeah,
okay, so
podium.
first place.
So if they podium, they also get invited to the big kind of AS International and Invitational competition.
Okay.
So that's a thing that ASM have brought up to replace Arnold's. And if some of the viewers might remember FitFest, that was an attempt to replace Arnold's, and then COVID made that whole thing not happen anymore. So yeah, Australia's Strongest have really done well to kind of give a pathway for us to actually have all the athletes here have an opportunity, and like we're really thankful for that, because like that's the stuff that motivates people. Like you want to see where you want to go, and like we've got some amazing athletes here that want to go to like worlds and like really showcase what they have to bring to the table in the sport. And it's really good to see that like these types of opportunities are really given to our athletes again. So
yeah. Well, that's great, and I think I still actually need to organize it with Mason, who runs Australia's Strongest. We're going to do a bit of a podcast online.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So, but what I want to talk to him about and to you guys about is the heavyweight guys have and women have the Australia's Strongest Man and Australia's Strongest Woman comp.
Yeah.
But then there's the middleweight series.
Yes.
So that's your the 90s and the 105s for the men, and the 73s and 82s for the women. So Megan won that this year over East.
Yeah.
Which was amazing.
Which was great.
So
it was a
fun to
really
watch.
fun experience. Yeah, very fun. They streamed
Narumi
that
was
one.
there as well, and he freaking killed it.
And
too.
he won the
Yeah.
the 90s, 105s?
Under 90s,
90s,
yeah.
90s. So we have, out of the 4 divisions, 2 of the Australian champions are from WA, which is great.
Yeah.
But we don't have a qualifier in WA for the next year's
I know, right?
ASMS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess this was one of the things. It's like, is that they're running this whole little, there's like a qualifying series. I think it was like 5 or 6 events, but they were all based in the eastern states
East.
or in New Zealand has one as well.
Yeah.
Have you guys been in touch with Mason about trying to organize something over here
from like day one.
from day one?
Yeah.
And are we making progress on that?
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And Mason will talk to you more about it on the day when you guys have your podcast. But it's one of those things where like for us, like W.A Strongman isn't just like W.A Strongman. It's a community for the entire state. And one of our goals isn't just to produce events for people to see, but it's actually to create pathways for the athletes and to help represent themselves to then build their brand to be able to go further. Because strongman's a showman sport. It's not just the do your lifts, be the strongest. It's about being able to also entertain and really showcase what the sport has for everyone. And so, because WA is not the only one that doesn't have a middleweight series. I think South Australia and Northern Territory as well don't have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're a lot closer to the eastern states, so it's a lot easier for them to travel.
Correct.
But even pre-COVID, when we had Arnold's and stuff, WA has always been the state that would have to fly over. And so I'm a huge advocate of how can we kind of get everyone to have a fair go, and how can we make opportunities fair for everyone. And one of the biggest things is like we should definitely have a middleweight series in WA. We've talked about it a lot, and we've always offered like we're happy to run it. We've got the systems in place. We have the connections with venues to be able to host events like that.
And the majority of the equipment.
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, exactly. So I mean, like we bought so much stuff this year.
I hear in the market for a monolift, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, okay.
you got to. We'll talk to the accountant and see how she goes, but hopefully we can swing it. But yeah, no, the big thing is like we're able to do it. So I mean,
I'm hoping that now that now that Anthony's raised it with Mason, it's kind of now on his radar
Yeah.
to consider for next year to add WA into the mix of the series.
It is hard because when you have to travel, it's not like, and again, in the eastern states, it might be an hour flight or a 2-hour flight.
yeah.
It's very different from a 5-hour flight.
Yeah.
Booking these hotels away
especially
from
with,
home.
like weigh-ins and stuff
Weigh-ins
as well. Yeah.
where if people are trying to cut weight, can be really difficult. And if the only way to get a ticket to the final is to win one,
Yeah.
you're already at a big deficit having to fly across and do all those things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, having a local one would be fantastic. That's good to hear that you guys are in chats with
Yeah.
him and hopefully coming to agreements on how that would work.
yeah, exactly.
No,
yeah.
well, I mean, it's one of those things, like, in fairness, I definitely think, like, if you're willing to fly over east to go and compete, you're probably going to make sure that you win, right? Just like Megan and Naramu did, because like you've spent all that money, you gotta recuperate it, and thankfully they've made those competitions have enough prize money to cover those costs, which is really, really good, because I mean, having to already participate in a sport that like everyone, like you're paying for like a coach, a gym membership, your equipment, your flights, like all that stuff, you want to be able to see that you can sustain that too. So no, it's great to see. So
yeah, it's
hopefully
always
next year.
It's always been a
amazing.
goal of mine to like invite people from over east actually to WA
Yeah.
to experience some of our competitions. And I think like, you know, for example, the Clash competition is one big one that we feel like we could continue growing to be able to make it so it's worth it for people over east. Actually,
Already locked in for next year anyway.
yeah,
Nice.
to be able to actually come over east to actually compete and experience what WA competitions are all about as well.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that can at least give them a taste as to the standard and the production level that we can actually give to the wider nation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Well, I think that's really good. Is there anything else we want to talk about, sort of pathways going forward? I guess there is one, but I'll circle back in, I guess, after, like we talk about, you want to talk about some rising stars potentially
Yeah,
up in the Strongman scene?
Oh man,
Hell
I
yeah.
swear. I mean,
All right.
let's just list your members in the gym.
Oh, come on now. Come on now.
Okay,
Don't you
well,
flatter me.
I'm going to start with someone that, like, I'm sure, like you guys spoke about, and you would have spoken about in your podcast for sure. But one of the rising stars in your gym, 100%, is Sophie. We've been seeing some of her videos, and man, oh man, has she been killing it!
She
Like,
basically strict pressed that 65.
yeah,
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
did you
It
work
was
to
insane.
get your 60, and then like your 65 that you've just
Don't
got?
even get me started.
Yeah.
It's a bit soul
So,
crushing.
and she only weighs 60 kilos too.
Yeah,
she's
insane.
underweight for the weight class. She weighs like 60.2 or something.
Yeah.
I had her doing volume yoke this morning.
Yeah, I saw.
in
Did she put up a
preparation.
video of it, right?
I'm not sure if she did 6 runs of 15 at 205 kilos. So
Damn.
yeah, she's strong.
So FYI, the world record for under 64s, I'm pretty sure, is 350 for 15 meters.
350?
unbroken. So just
15,
putting that out
like
there.
1.5 or
Yeah,
50?
15 meters.
15
Yeah.
meters.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
There we go.
So hopefully Sophie will listen to this and kind
Look,
of.
she's brand new to it. So 350 is heavy. It's a lot of weight, but she's strong. She's very strong.
so
She's
much
only
potential.
just started.
Yeah.
So I mean, like in our podcast, you know, we had Josie on actually as a guest, and she's got her eyes set on Soph.
Does
Safe
she?
to say, yeah.
Look,
Yeah.
she's a seasoned athlete, Josie. So yeah, it's good. I think Sophie she's a great athlete, and she picks stuff up really quickly, and she trains really hard, and we've identifying where her weaknesses are, and we're going to slowly erase those weaknesses, I think. So
That's awesome.
look, I think Josie's out there doing really well. But it's again a good goal and a good standard that she's setting for Sophie to try to chase after,
Exactly.
which is really
Exactly.
important.
Well, it's
because
good
you
to
want
finally
that.
see some competitive weight classes, especially in the female categories too now, where
And again, it's just a matter of time, right?
Yeah.
So you start to get more and more, and as you get more people, that pool of
patience.
athleticness is going to increase. You know,
Exactly.
you build a platform, you set the standards, and you just wait. And as long as we stay consistent with these events, and like it'll just grow. And I mean, like hell, like next year is probably going to be bigger than this year. And like we're already so thankful of how amazing this year's been for us that like anything plus would just be amazing. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, fair enough. And there any sort of like up and coming guys, are women at the other weight classes as well?
Who you think of one? I'm very excited for the battle in the opens actually this year, because
Okay.
I think that's going to be a tight match. I don't have a pick at all. We just came back from the gym, and Kong, who's the state championship winner from last year, was going in to train, and we were talking about it. And we were just like, who do we think is going to win? Like you've got Bo, you've got two newcomers, Alex, we call them Alex 1 and Alex 2. And then we've got Merrick, we've got Nathan, Craig as well, Dave Wood, and then Nathan and Kong, right? Did I say Kong already?
I think that might be the first
you
one.
did.
Yeah. So
Is
that's like
Nav,
seven,
is
eight
Nav
people.
competing still?
No, he hasn't competed in any of the qualifiers.
Right.
So yeah, it's that's been the one thing. But I did see that he's going down to is it Tasmania or South Australia, where they've got a qualifier as well. So because we know that he really wants to do a state he wants to go to ASM.
Right.
So yeah, and apparently it was a really tight match at the competition that was down south. So it's one of those things where like our hands are tied with creating these opportunities where we have to make it fair for all the athletes. And
Right.
I mean, like it's not like W.A Strongman hasn't had this qualifying platform for forever. So like it's just one of those kind of unfortunate situations where like just lack of planning didn't make it pay off well. But
Right. They used to, back when, a long time ago, back when I used to compete, a long time ago, they used to have a wildcard system as well.
Yeah.
When Dan was running things, where if someone, for example, from a different sport, but like a highly regarded powerlifter wanted to jump into something, or if someone had just missed out but was well deserving, there was the ability to have them as wildcard entries to boost that level of competition for the finals. That's not something that you guys are considering anymore?
Well, no. It's I think it's like we got to establish the fact that like we've already got like 7 people in the open weight division. Like that's the most we've ever had in an open division in the history of strongman in WA. So like first and foremost, that's a big thing in itself. So it's not that we've not really considered it. It's more just like there's already so many people there, and like our goal is to make as many opportunities as possible. And so like for us, we also have to consider the people that have gone and like done the work and paid their dues and competing regularly to be able to go. And so yeah, like we want to try and do our best to help everyone get their pathway to where they need to go. And it's one of those things where unfortunately you can't please everyone.
Sure.
But like we try our best, and it's one of those things where sometimes you have to kind of pick the majority over the few and try and help the most people that you can, and kind of do as many things as you can to give people opportunities on the back end as well.
Right. I guess do you when you sit down and look at that, do you say, all right, the most number of competitors we want at a state final, for example, is X number of people per weight division, or is it total number of people per event? So if you're looking at like, for example, Megan's going to OSG and competing for World's Strongest Woman, and there's a lot of competitors because only the top 10 make the grand final on day 3.
That's right.
Right? So would you say maybe entertain the future? Look, we want to have ideally in a perfect world, 8 competitors per weight class is going to be a good number where we can pair them off this and that, or is it just total number for the day? Because if there was, for example, we want 8 because then we can pair people off this and that, and there's only 7 that have qualified. That leaves that opportunity for a wild card to come in, and no one's missing. I completely understand you don't want anyone to miss out because you're giving a wild card to someone that didn't do what the other people have done. So that does make sense as well.
Yeah, like our goal in all of this, because we decided, because we knew that was a rule before. But before this season started, Anthony and I kind of sat down and we really actually tried to kind of clean up the system a little bit more and make it a little bit more regimented. So then that way it's just a little bit more officiated is I guess the main thing. We just want to make it sort of like there is always going to be a clear pathway, and this is exactly how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
So then that way, because being at a state level, more than half of our goal out of being a state organization is to bring new people into the sport.
Right.
So if there is like a direct and clean pathway into the sport, people will feel a little bit more enticed. They'll feel kind of secure in knowing that what they're planning to do is definitely what's going to happen.
Right.
So we just don't want to kind of, like, the goal isn't to blindside anyone. We want to make sure, our goal as well is community. So these people have been through a whole season together. They've versed each other. They've seen each other through the season, and they're like, okay, cool. Like, we can have some fun competition.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of the reason why we've taken away the wild card system this year, because we just want it to be, this is how you get in and this is where you're going to finish. There's no question about it. There's no kind of grey areas or anything like that. Like, there's a
breeds
clear
consistency, and it makes things easier for everyone to plan. Like I guess like this is the thing that we got to also consider. Like this year we've had twice as many people compete in our competitions this year alone. Like I mean, to be more specific, we've had twice as many people compete that are different, like altogether. So it doesn't count the people that have competed twice this year.
Right.
Just let alone
Twice as many unique people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas like last year, we had about 75 people in total. So that counts everyone that did qualifiers and the state championships and people that did multiple novices.
Sure.
Whereas this time we've had 150 different people compete
Wow.
this year. Like that alone is huge.
It's fantastic.
And so for us, it's a big kind of step forward. But because of that, we gotta look at like how do you systemize things to make it fair for everyone and consistent to the way where people can plan ahead as well. So one of the big things that we set out for this year was let's bring consistency in the competitions. Let's bring platforms and systems in how we advertise them and how we showcase them and like give them some themes, make it a show. We also wanted to actually make it so then that way we can repeat these competitions so that way we can then go, okay, these competitions are on this day. This is what it's going to be. So then that way it makes it easier for us to then look at other exhibition style type of events for the next season.
Sure.
Like I think the biggest thing that we got to remember is that like from a logistical perspective, it's just Jane and I that have to go in and do the planning for every event and then to justify it, to then finance it, and then to let everything kind of go forward. And the challenge with that is that like there's only 24 hours in a day. There's only two bodies here. And so we want to have other people help us with that. So we've kind of created a bit of like a committee of people that have supported us throughout the years and that work together to facilitate and follow the ethos of what W.A Strongman is. And that's kind of helped us to facilitate more. So like the muscle pit competition being the biggest example, like we were able to actually completely step back and go and give the reins to people that we trust to run this competition and to facilitate that. So then that way, like in the future, if like touch wood, like we don't get COVID the week of a comp, like that's a big thing. Or if like there's so many events that happen and so many things to facilitate that we just need a bigger team. And so it's one of those things where like on the back end of things, you need a team that you know will have your back, and you need to have people that will kind of be there for you. And it's been so great to see the whole community kind of become that. And like it's crazy because we would have never planned for it. We just know that like if we're consistent, if we try and we add more systems and we communicate that with everyone, then more people will come. Like strongman is definitely a growing sport, and so you just see it get bigger and better no matter what. So if we can hone that a little bit and then maybe next year produce an opportunity to give even more of an opportunity for all the athletes, that's just gonna pay dues. And like I'm a big fanboy. I love to watch strongman, and I just love seeing people go from like where they were to where they are. Like we've got some people that have literally never done strongman before this year, and they've done like multiple competitions, and they've achieved goals that they would have never thought they could. And like that in itself, that makes it worth it. Like it's all the late nights, all the hard work. It really does make it worth it for us. So it's what we kind of like work for.
Yeah,
anyway.
Absolutely. Something that I've had to deal with this year and that I've been thinking about moving forward is how are you going to deal with when your top athletes at states, so your Josies, your Megans, stuff like that, those sort of people, when they start qualifying for these national and international level events, because that's when this system could get a little messy. So, for example, Megan, just the way it is, timeline, states are run while she's away, which is fine. But let's say next year she needs to do an ASMS qualifier, right? To qualify for the ASMS. Let's assume she wins that, and then she competes at the ASMS. And that qualifies her to go to OSG, and she competes at OSG. Now, when you're competing at that national and international level, look, 3 events is heaps. As her coach, I don't want her to do a qualifier to then to do states.
Yeah.
But if you don't do the qualifier, she can't go to states. And if you look at someone like Megan, and Josie's and those sort of characters, they inspire so many people to want to do the sport.
Yeah.
So Megan alone competing has had 5 of our other women here start doing strongman. So all of a sudden, if she doesn't do a qualifier, she can't do states, and then she doesn't compete, people don't get eyes on her because she's only competing over East or overseas.
Yeah.
So how do you plan on combating that? And because it's not going to be just be Megan, like it's going to be your Naramus, your Megans, your Josies.
Yeah, we sat down. We literally talked about this before the state championships last year, because like it's a genuine problem, and it's something that we noticed like midway through last year. And so we actually spoke with ASM, and we looked at like how can we actually do this, and we actually got the advice that like we should run a separate competition that qualifies people for like bigger competitions, that you jump in and you can do that, and as long as you can lift the weights, you can. So we actually had it planned. We organized it all, and then just purely because of just logistical matters, we couldn't facilitate that this year. But the solve for that problem is it's pretty simple. You host a big competition that takes them to that international or national level. That's entry only. You don't have to qualify. It could even potentially be invite only, where we sit down and invite all the athletes. We're very much community orientated, so we don't want to really look at restricting it that well.
Yeah.
But then all the people that compete in that competition, because those weights are so heavy, as long as they hit the required weights and didn't no lift, they then qualify for states.
Right.
So then that way, if they didn't get the chance that they wanted there, they still qualified for states. So they then go to states to go get another opportunity, and that's
Right.
kind of the solve that we had planned. And it's just one of those things where unfortunately, like there's only so many things that you can do. There's only so many events that can happen, and when things don't plan out the way that they do, you just have to kind of do what you can. But we've solved that problem already. We do have an idea of how we want to kind of work that to really maximize what it is that we can do for everyone in WA, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider doing something like if you win states at a certain weight class, that auto qualifies you for states the next year, because then that person has the opportunity to compete overseas and internationally and progress.
That's the rule. That's the rule.
That's
anyway.
the current rule?
Yeah.
Oh, perfect.
So
Beautiful.
if you win the state championships, you don't have to qualify anymore.
Okay, beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, so that's been an ongoing rule since before we even started running WASM.
Nice.
So that's something that's there. So that helps people to be able to do that.
Yes, yeah. Just one less competition so they can focus on the big competitions.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Strongman doesn't have an off season technically, right? So if you can minimize that risk of injury for athletes, especially as you get more specialized as an athlete, you need to be able to look at your recovery more. You need to look at how you can develop more, and that's what an off season's all about. And,
Yeah.
I mean, Strongman, it might be like an off season weekend, but it's something, right? So,
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's one of those things that I had to deal with this year, because I'm telling Megan, no, you can't compete in this, you can't compete in this, you can't compete in this.
Right?
She's like, but I want to do this and this, and then I can't qualify for this. I'm like,
Because she had to, because even though she won ASMS, she has to re-qualify again for next year, right?
correct. It's the
Yeah.
same. It's the same problem, right?
Yeah.
So
is
don't
a bit of
worry.
a weird thing,
Mason's
though.
getting the same question when I talk to him
Yeah.
as well. Hey,
Oh,
bro,
he's
she
already
won
gotten it
it.
from
Let
us
her
anyway.
pre-qualify. Let the champion back in.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me. But he's the one running and he's doing a great job as well.
Yeah.
He's
So
really
good to
upped
see.
it. Big prize money, lots of comps. It's awesome to
Yeah.
see the direction that he's helping push the sport.
gotten huge
So yeah,
now.
this is no shade. This is no shade to you,
no.
Mason. This is just me asking questions.
Yeah.
So I don't want to keep
people
traveling
have
over
questions.
east. The people have questions. Yeah.
But the thing is, we still, when we're not just because we've created this system this year, it doesn't mean that we're not open to feedback. So
Yeah.
we kind of look at the year that's happened.
Constructive feedback.
Exactly.
People. Constructive
Healthy
feedback.
Always
constructive
constructive, yeah. But we always just kind of review the year, and then we kind of see, okay, what worked, what didn't work. And we just continue working on building more solid systems, things that make sense to the best of our ability, making it as
And the
fair as we
circumstances
can.
of the year too as well.
Yeah. So, like, you know, it's not just like, you know, this year is the be all and end all. This is how the system is for forever.
Right.
It's just, okay, like, this is something different that we've never done before. We're kind of changing a lot of things this year already. Let's try and keep it nice and steady, smooth flowing, and then we'll see how it goes next year.
Yeah,
So,
perfect.
Yeah, that's kind of how we're running it at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I was having a chat with Megan before, and I don't know if we're just miscommunicating. Last year, she weighed in for the 82s, but lifted the open weights.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so because she won the opens, she by default won both classes. And I think she was saying something about, is that not allowed this year? Is that changed a bit? Was Josie wanting to do 62s and open, but it was not?
So we've had a lot of questions this year with that kind of stuff, because like the big kind of thing that everyone has to kind of consider is that, like, for an event like strongman or any sport really, the aim is you've got to make it fair and justifiable for everyone in said weight classes. And so, for instance, Megan being an example, and same with Matt that competed in the States last year. So Matt, he was a 105er, but he'd been he's a pro strongman. He hasn't competed in a while, but he was killing it, and he wanted to go into opens because he looked at how many open athletes were competing last year, and he approached us and said, like, hey, like, do you want me to go to opens because it'll make a bigger show, it'll make it more fun, like, we're happy to do that, I want to support you guys, I just want to have fun. And so, like, you look at it from a case-by-case basis, and you have to kind of think of it more in the sense of, with those types of choices, you have to look at the individual and the individual's willingness to really work for that and to justify it. Like for us, if someone just wants to jump up a weight class just for the sake of it, but it then inconveniences another athlete's opportunity, we have to look at that and consider, well, what's going to give the most fair opportunity for every athlete? So like Josie is a big example where, like, we already had someone in the opens. There's a lot of people in her weight class already, and so it would inconvenience the athletes that were in her weight class that have been planning to verse Josie.
Right.
And so it's the case of there's a competitive focus there. Whereas with Megan last year, she had no one in her weight class that had qualified for states. And so she was going to verse herself. And then, like, her best friend Fee was in the opens, and she wanted to, they wanted to compete against each other. So that was a mutual decision that they did.
Right.
And so you take it from a case by case basis. And I mean, like, we tell everyone this when they ask us these questions, because it's not like we want to tell everyone, like, hey, like, if you just give us a really good reason to do this, then it'll be fine. Because then, like, as the sport grows, we might get, like, all these requests last minute before states while we're trying to organize these events to go, hey, can we make this change? Can we do this? And it becomes overwhelming.
Sure.
So you don't want to do too much to kind of open the floodgates.
Right.
But you also want to give as much opportunity. Like, it's a thing of give and take, right? So you got to kind of find what works. And I mean, this year we expanded and grew so much more than we had anticipated as well. So it's a case of, like, well, do we know if that's going to happen next year? We got to make those types of predictions and then make our kind of operational changes accordingly.
Right.
Because if we keep everything the same as the sport grows, let's say we have like 1,000 people that compete next year, how's that going to change states? What if we then have over 10 people at the state championships per weight class? How do we facilitate that? How do we expand to actually have that be a fair opportunity for all the athletes? So, like, these are all things that we got to consider, and you got to look at it in advance, because if you can't go and plan for that and you fall behind, then these athletes don't, now that there's a bottleneck and there isn't enough opportunity for them, and then they might get discouraged and they might not see the opportunity that's ahead of them because they might not have had the experience or have seen the past competitions in strongman where there'd be like one person in a weight class, like the under 80s for the state championships this year. Big example. We had one person compete last year, probably the athlete that's retired in strongman the most, Pat Hardy, really good friend of ours, and he killed it. He managed to help us with some sponsorship for last year with the company that he works with. It's how he saw the really cool tire deadlift that everyone got to do last year. But this year, like, there's 4 guys in the under 80s, and like that's something that we never see before. And so it's kind of being able to expand all of that, and you can't predict everything,
Right.
but you have to do your best to stay ahead, because if the moment you fall behind, that's when it inconveniences people. So you'd much rather try and like help as many people as you can, look at what you can do to prevent any altercations, and then from there you always take time to have feedback afterwards, because at the end of the day, if you're not willing to learn from what you do, you're not gonna progress the way that you want to. And I mean, like as coaches, we know that like you have to be able to willingly learn from your mistakes. If you're not sleeping enough, you're probably not going to recover enough. Like these are basic things that we got to consider with everything that we do.
Sure. Yeah, some of that definitely makes sense. Like, especially if you're weighing in at under 73s and you know you're not going to have a chance to win, and you're like, oh, I'm just going to weigh in here but compete up, but they're not strong enough to compete at that upper level. Completely understand. That doesn't make sense. I can understand if you've already filled out like the opens division is full, like we can't get any more in there, it's not feasible. If someone wants to go up, that makes sense. But I guess I just don't understand, because you want the strongest people to compete, and if Josie can compete at open weights, wouldn't it make sense that she competes in the open weights?
Yeah. No, I think it does. Like
and sorry to interject, and I completely understand your point as well. As the last thing you want is 2 weeks before the comp, 5 people trying to change their weight class to compete in opens, right?
Yeah.
I understand that as well.
No, exactly. Well, I mean, we actually, like Josie and I talked about this, like, because we, like I said, you got to take everything from a case by case basis. And we talked about it, and I asked her, like, why do you want to do this? Is it because like you want to go to ASM because that's what that pathway leads them to, and that's what like all the competitors there want to focus on. She just said she just wants to do it because it's like it's fun and stuff, and that's kind of the big thing. And so it's just one of those things where we looked at the athletes that are in the weight class now, and the athletes that are in the weight class that she would have been in, and just kind of like it's one of those choices that you got to make. Whether or not it's the wrong choice or the right choice, like we'll find out at States.
Yeah.
And if we find out this was the wrong choice, we'll learn from that.
Perfect.
That's all we can really say,
I
right?
think that's great. As long as you guys are open to, and that's what you're saying, you know,
what
you
it's all
take
about.
note at the end of the year, figure out what worked, what didn't. That's good.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. Because the last thing you want is to see people set in their ways, and that's really awesome to see that you guys are open to seeing what's working well.
Yeah.
And focusing on making that even better.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I think we've been around the block enough, like, you know, even in different like lifting sports as well, where we see like either changes that don't make sense because they're not current, or they're not kind of going with everyone, or they're just not listening to their members.
Right.
And I think that's like one of the biggest things that we learn from our experience with other lifting sports, where we're like, we can't be like that. We have to be people that listen to the community, and we also analyze the things that, okay, we could have been better at this. This probably wasn't the best idea. Let's move on and figure out how else we can make it fair and a stronger system.
Sure.
And we just keep progressing from there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. That's
very cool. One of the points you listed for me is what makes the best strongman athletes, and this is a fun one. So I'm down to like jump into this one. What do you guys reckon here? All right, Anthony, what makes the best strongman athlete?
All right, so I think I'll kind of put my coach's hat on, and I'll talk about it from this perspective, and then I'll kind of talk about like what the best strongman as a show, as a sporting organizer would think. But like to be a really good strongman athlete, what you got to be good at is everything. That's kind of a well-known fact. It's a sport about what can you do, like who can lift the heaviest weight and do it for the longest and do it for as many reps, and then still go and do 5 other events or 8 other events depending on the event, the competition. Now, what we see a lot of people do, keep in mind, we're talking at like a local amateur league type level, because worlds and like World's Strongest Man, that's a whole different question. But at an amateur league type level, we got to remember that all the athletes that are competing, and majority of them, they pay to compete. They don't have the best recovery tools. They don't have the best ability to train themselves. There's some athletes that compete in our comps that don't even have a coach. Really recommend that you get a coach if you're doing strongman. But it's one of those things where you got to look at like those risks of injury. And one of the best things that we know that helps people reduce injury is by being mobile and agile. is the biggest thing. You don't have to be like a gymnastics level mobility guy. Like you don't have to be like Adrian, who's super mobile. It's more about you got to be able to withstand the punches that get thrown your way. If you do a heavy ass yoke for the first event of a competition, will that gas you out for the next event? Are your joints going to ache from everything that you're putting it through? And having those connective tissues be developed to be able to withstand what's thrown at you. So it's mobility, it's conditioning, and then it's strength. Like it's like you said, like strength comes from stability. Yep. Stability comes from mobility and strength. How do you develop that? You build that as your baseline. You build those habits that build off of that, and it's a compounding thing. And you just keep it consistent, and that's how you develop. And I think one of the things that a lot of people can take from I think Olympic weightlifting, which is a sport of patience, is to be patient and to see the progress that you develop and to celebrate the wins. That's the biggest thing. Like we get caught up in like, oh man, I didn't do that deadlift at comp. I could only get 1 rep. But then when they look back and they go like, well, that was a 50 kilo PB from what I did at the start of the year. Like people forget that. People forget that they've just done something they've never done before, and now they're able to do that. But when you put that in a competitive environment and they say, oh, it wasn't good enough, that's not a sustainable way of thinking.
Right.
Like, that's not going to make you want to do this forever. Like, to be a community, you got to bring each other up. You don't put people down. You got to do that with yourself sometimes too. Like we have so much like negative talk that happens to athletes sometimes, and as coaches, like we see it all the time, and like it's not frustrating. It's disheartening seeing people kind of think that way, because you need to be able to bring yourself up, because you'll have a bad day. You'll have a good day. You might have a mediocre day. It's the rule of thirds. Like, you'll only feel great a third of the time. That's just a fact. And that's if you match that, then you're good. You're kind of on the right track. You'll feel shitty a third of the time in training as well. You'll feel all right a third of the time, and then you'll feel great a third of the time. If you match that average and you focus on staying consistent with everything you do, you'll break the ceiling that you see, and you'll achieve things that you never would have thought possible.
Nice. Jane, what makes a great strongman athlete?
Oof. All right. Well, first and foremost, you need to have a foundation of strength.
I was going to thought you say first and foremost you have to subscribe to Tacky Sisters podcast.
Oh, that's a definite. That's a definite.
Do that.
Come on.
Do that.
You got to plug yourself.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I'm still new to this, okay?
So after subscribing to Tacky Sisters
yeah,
podcast
yeah.
and Strength Institute podcast, of course.
I feel like I should get a podcast now.
That's right.
I think, secondly, definitely having like a basic foundation of strength is number one. If you've never even stepped foot in a gym before and you're like, I want to do strongman, if you came to me as a coach, I would have been like, let's start from square one. And it's just about being humble about it. There's no need to rush into getting into lifting and doing all the like yokes and stones and things like that. Like, you need to really know your body and how it moves before you even put yourself under that sort of strain. And so like my number one thing is just there's no need to rush into strongman. As long as you need to have the basics sorted first. You need to know how to deadlift, for example, overhead press properly without it being a log,
Or feel pain, right?
Or feel pain. And like, as Anthony and yourself mentioned, the stability and like, as I said, like knowing your body well enough that you're able to hold a log over your head, or you're able to walk 200 kilos, like a 200 kilo frame on your back. Like, you need to know your body before you even consider the sport of strongman or really any really lifting sport in general. My other one is just leave your ego at the door. Just be humble. Like, a little bit of ego is good. I was actually having this conversation with Kong this morning. It's such an awkward sport that, you're going to have really bad days. You're going to have great days. And you just need to understand the fact that not everything is a linear progression. So you're going to have up and downs. You're going to have days where you can't explain why you feel the way that you feel, and you just have to accept it. Don't beat yourself down. Don't be mad at the people around you. Don't be mad at your coach. Like, you've just got to accept the fact that, okay, today was a rough day, and you move on and you continue building from there. And you have to kind of take that step back and look at the progression that you've made from start to where you are now,
Right.
and actually appreciate that. And I think that's how you're really going to do well in competitions. You're going to do really well under stress and anxiety and things like that, is knowing how to handle yourself first.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great advice. Great advice and good points from both of you. I like the mobility, stability, know your body, be pliable,
Sounds very standard.
try to
really.
leave it, check your ego at the door, all these sort of things. Have a good base in everything. Just be generally athletic. Don't
Just be better, right?
just be better. But let me put this forward. What about the super competitors, the
Yeah.
super athletes, the Michael Jordans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't tell Michael Jordan to check his ego
No,
at the
no,
door.
no.
Yeah.
But that's a
So
different
where does-
perspective, I'd say.
A different perspective. So I think the advice that you're giving here is great for anyone that wants to get into strongman and compete and have fun and this and that. What would your advice be for someone that wants to be the best?
Be like a freak of nature.
Who wants to be like, hey, you guys, this is not your competition. You're just watching
Yeah,
me
yeah.
win this right now.
Yeah. Well,
Right?
that also
Because that's a different beast right there.
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's
true.
so funny. We were literally talking about this this week because, like, as coaches, we've got different ideas of how we coach people, and I'm very methodical. I'm very thought orientated. Like, every choice you make has an outcome. Everything that you do has a secondary consequence. And you got to consider everything. You got to be like the meme of the crazy dude. I'm sure you could put it up where he's like putting all the red threads everywhere to connect the dots.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Like that's what I'm like. And so for a lot of the guys that I coach, and for people that want to be like the best, it's not about going and like just lifting crazy heavy weights and just doing that. You got to do everything. Like what we said before, that's a non-negotiable. If you don't have that, like you're not gonna get to that point. Like, yeah, maybe checking your ego at the door. Like, you already have an ego if you're that committed. That's fine. But if you don't have the baseline of like your sleep, your hydration, your training schedule, if you don't have a coach behind you, if you don't have like a chiro or physio or like a recovery specialist, a nutritionist, like you have to have all of that stuff, and you have to have that, and then not sleep, eat, and like live the sport that you're in. Nothing should be able to stop you.
That's right.
It's one of those things where like you have one goal and that's nothing else but achieving that goal. And if something like, oh no, I want to go play Xbox and stuff just stops you, you're not going to get there.
That's
like,
right.
That's not those
Everything
things can't happen.
counts.
Yeah, everything counts.
And you have to
Non-negotiable.
be tactical day to day, and
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
to be strategic long term.
Oh,
right?
the 1%ers, man. The 1%ers. Like I coach a few rugby guys, and like the thing that you got to do to get them to think like, how do I go pro? How can I be the best of the best? Very competitive sport. How, especially here in Australia, how do you give them opportunities? Because I mean, like some small teams in England get paid twice as much as the Western Force here. How do they get themselves out there? And it's like the silly things of like, if you're a juniors kid that's like 16 and you want to be the best of the best, you got to suck it up and not be a little and just go for it. Nothing can stop you. And like, it's the little things of like, I got to sleep enough. I got to drink enough water. I've got to go and make sure that if I can find some way to improve myself in my lifestyle, like as silly as I live 5 kilometers away from school, I'll just cycle to school and taking the bus. That's a 1%er. Or if you can improve your bedtime routine, or if you can improve something, there's a constant point of improvement inside and outside the gym. That's all it is. Like I could talk about this forever. There's
You
always
almost
something.
have to look at yourself like you're the project, right?
100%,
So
100%.
the things that you add into the project, it will improve the performance of it or the
It's an
outcome
investment.
of it.
And really, you do, and you still have to, even if you're that person, check the ego at the door, because if you don't, you won't actually look at
Yeah.
what you can improve on.
Well,
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you'll look at like, oh no, I don't need to do mobility. I'm already too good. Like,
Yeah,
no.
like competitiveness
Check
is
it.
good. Like, looking at others, like, being strategic, all that sort of stuff, that's great. But it's the type of ego where you're beating yourself up about it.
Yeah.
You're throwing your belt across the room because you're frustrated, and you walk out the gym and you don't
Yeah.
finish your workout.
Yeah.
It's that sort of like
Yeah.
ego that I would.
They wouldn't be allowed back in here.
Oh.
My goodness.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
now-
We don't tolerate that sort of behavior in here.
Yeah.
What about chalk?
Jeez. Don't get me started on chalk. Don't get me started. We normally have very mindful, considerate people in here. There was a certain little incident, but that's all right. We'll let it slide. It was for a news article.
Okay.
So we'll let it slide.
Because
Put a
it was for
little asterisk
advertising
next
for
to
the
her
gym,
name,
it was
right?
okay.
It was just because of, even though she mentioned the gym name like twice in the interview, I was here,
Yeah.
and he didn't put it in the actual paper. I'm like, you dog, you dog.
way.
All that chalk spilt everywhere.
That
for
chalk
nothing.
spilled
Should have
everywhere.
gotten her to wear the strength.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
wanted to look good in the pink, so
of
it's all right.
course.
Yeah.
We'll let that one slide. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to touch on while I have you here?
Oh, what else? What else is there?
That's almost everything.
That's
Pretty
mostly
much.
everything.
Yeah. I mean, like, should we maybe talk about like next year? Is there anything that we want to talk about for next year?
I think we should leave that a secret.
Yeah.
Leave
Well,
it a secret.
Yeah.
So not all things are best left. Leave some
I'm
things
sure we could
untold.
think of something. Come on, boss. What can we share?
Oh,
There's gonna be. You got to figure out how you're gonna get the monolift into a trailer.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, we'll need to take those trophies of
That's-
yours
that's
too,
a-
actually.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another story, that monolift.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I think if we could, like, one thing that we can share is that next year is definitely going to be bigger and better than this year.
There'll be more competitions, more opportunities.
Yeah. Some like really cool ones too. Like exhibition stuff, maybe like some like a type of like a one lift specific championship type thing. We don't want to share anything. Jane's already been giving me a lot of shit because like I'll get really excited for the stuff and then I'll like blurt it out and then I realize, oh shit, I can't say anything. What did I do? So yeah, no, we've got some really nice things.
Actually, one thing I will talk about real quick
Yeah.
is, and you know, it's mostly Anthony and someone else that's spearheading it, but
Ooh, yeah. this is
there's
something
actually
to
going to
talk
be
about.
a W.A Strong Abilities organization starting up, and
Okay.
they'll be debuting at the state championships.
All right.
But it's basically Anthony and another coach that lives up in the hills called Cass. She does a lot of work with people with disabilities. So we're talking as far as like amputees to people with like autism or Asperger's, and she works with them in strengths, like just with strength lifting. And then she was actually looking into how to get them onto a competitive platform, and she found that
She's been trying for 2 years, by the way.
yeah, and she actually found that strongman is probably the best thing suited for people that can't move as well as an able-bodied person. So they've actually been working together on creating a not-for-profit organization to allow people of all abilities to actually compete in the sport of strongman. So that's actually very exciting, and they'll be starting up a couple of competitions next year.
Very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no,
Great.
it'd be really great. We, I think one specific thing that we can kind of talk about is the fact that, like Cass and I, with W.A Strong Abilities, it's something that, like we've all seen videos, and even in Arnold's UK that was on a few weeks ago, they had someone with, I think it was autism that came on and performed a lift on the day, and they had a whole separate platform for people of all abilities to be able to actually go and participate. And I think there's a big kind of growth in the sport, especially when you look at like the Stoltman brothers, like a world's strongest man athlete who's autistic. He's been blowing up like crazy and kind of inspiring a lot of people. And we get a lot of people asking us like, what can I do? Like, I really want to be a part of this. Or we've had people's carers come and ask us. And like, these are people that like, they want to participate in strength sports. And one of the biggest issues that they face is the restrictedness in the sports that they live in. Like powerlifting is probably a really quick and easy example of where, like, let's say you've got someone that's got a cerebral palsy and they want to deadlift, but they don't have any like real function in one arm. They might need to use a strap or a hook. In powerlifting, that's a no-go. Sorry, you can't do that.
Right.
You can't participate. Not a question of like, we want you to participate, we want you to be there. And it's not like Cass hasn't tried. She's actually communicated with all the federations, and it's not that they aren't looking at doing that. It's one of those things where you've only got 24 hours in a day. You've only got this amount of people in your team. How do you justify those things? And for us, we're lucky enough to have the freedoms and the flexibility to be able to spearhead that. And hopefully we can we can see this grow, we can get more participation, and then like see it turn into something big where we might
Broaden the community.
Get people over East involved. Like we're not the first people to do this anyway. Like it's already been big over East, but
Nick from Australia's Strongest, she's doing that.
Yeah. I
killing
saw
it.
some
And I
posts
think
there.
it's such an amazing thing.
Very
Like,
cool.
It's a really great cause. So we really love that, and it's just something where like Cass is so good at that. She's so passionate, and so having someone like that to be able to facilitate that is amazing. So yeah, she'll actually be talking about that at our state championships anyway, and so that'll be good. I'll get her comfortable in front of the camera and stuff too, but it'll be good to see.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, guys.
Thank you.
Really
Bye.
appreciate that. I think we got through a lot of really good information there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Which is perfect.
Yeah.
So if you haven't done so already, jump on to the YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Jump onto W.A Strongman, give them a like on Facebook.
Oh yeah, we actually have a YouTube video as well.
YouTube channel.
too. So
W.A Strongman's YouTube channel.
W.A Strongman.
Give that a subscribe,
All the
follow.
live streams and stuff are there.
That's
so.
it. And subscribe to Tacky Sisters podcast. Do all the subscribing. Subscribe to
All
everything.
All the subscribe.
We'll have a
Subscribe
list.
to everything. We'll have a list. I'll put it all in the description, guys. So that is one that they can all do.
Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. Thanks so much.
All right.
And we will get you back on here at some point in the near
Yeah.
future, I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds
Perfect.
good.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.